All right. What is going on, people? It's been a minute since at least myself, have been on YouTube. This is kind of my introduction back into the game. I have a guest here with me, Mr. Manuel. You might know him from Holistic Manhood.
Yeah.
Uh, More or less, what we're going to be doing is talking about what we've been up to. And I don't know if, Manuel, you've been posting some YouTube videos recently, right?
Yeah, I've been starting already. You're getting back now onto it.
Yeah. So more or less, we're just getting back into the groove and showing some more long form content. I'll let kind of Manuel introduce himself or reintroduce himself in a sense, kind of talk about what you got going on, what your message is about, and yeah, ultimately what you've been up to.
Awesome. All right. So maybe some people know me. We collaborated in the past already. We did quite a couple of collaborations actually.
Hmm.
We two, and we had a group where we made collaborations. Then I started to first like go away from the space for some time, but now a couple of weeks ago I decided to re-enter the space with a better vision and really reconnecting to my purpose. And yeah, I mean, back in the days, it was holistic manhood, like Tino said, more focus on masculinity. Of course, there's always going to be an element of it in the content that we post, but I think we both are more now into a different segment of the male self improvement niche, I would say.
Hmm.
For me specifically, I actually was thinking about this recently in greater depth. I was going over, okay, my client cases and who can I really help the best.
Hmm.
And we do similar work, of course, but I actually target or start to target more entrepreneurs and businessmen, especially those who tend to be in a little bit of an older age bracket, just because that worked the best for me. But in terms of topics, we're pretty similar. We talk about male self improvement, but not like the external things that I call it, like things like discipline and you got to be on the grind, because that is like the first stage of development that you get in. But we kind of want to get into the deeper topics and make that, I always say, like, inner growth is like such an intangible concept, and we just try to make that into practical steps.
Hmm. Honestly, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's more or less the path that I'm walking these days as well. Like I started out kind of doing more of the surface level stuff with self-improvement and like, hey, take a cold shower, go to the gym, approach girls, etc., which again are all important things. But I think now I'm transitioning more into more spirituality, specifically like rooted in Christian ethics, Christian faith, exploring my faith at the same time. That's kind of the way these two things intertwine. Um, and also how we don't really go deep with masculine topics. We talk about the stuff on the surface of like, yeah, like be a man, like be disciplined, like you said, and show up powerfully, be a leader, which is great. But then the question always arises, well, like, how do I do that? What's stopping me from actually becoming that kind of guy? How do I feel like that kind of guy? And what is getting in the way from me to even actually do that consistently on a basis where every day I feel like I'm making a shift, making a difference. So, in the same vein, I'm doing a very similar thing with transformation. It's a lot deeper and it's a lot slower, but that's really where real growth happens. Like everybody thinks that growth happens in a microwave, but it's more like a cigar. Like you smoke a cigar, like it takes about an hour or two for it to really fully burn. And I found that that type of growth, a slow burn, slow process, that's what actually creates the most sustainable outcomes. And I'm sure that you've found the same thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the fact that you mentioned that, because that's really the phase that I'm currently in. I mean, obviously, in this space, we're all high performing men. We all have great ambition, great vision,
Hmm.
and we always move extremely fast. And this is important, right? Especially if you're in the starting phase, like speed and momentum are absolute key.
Right.
But as you transition into a new sphere, I would say, like, if you really, I always say most of the performance, and this is where we get a little bit into today's topic, is based on anxiety and fear and really running away from it. Right?
Mhm.
So you start with nothing. That's how the world works. That's how hierarchy works, you know. You start at the bottom of the dominance hierarchy and you have to work your way up,
Mhm.
right? But at some point you will hit a plateau. You know, those ways, the anxiety, the fear of not being good enough, and you trying to prove yourself, this is what will get you to a certain level. And if you want to exceed that level, you will have to start leading with true purpose, with calm, and with confidence.
Mhm. Yeah, and I agree 100%. I think that there's a level of, especially in the masculine space, there's a level of performance that we feel that we have to hit to be worthy. And one of the things that a lot of my clients honestly deal with is that exact thing, that feeling of worthiness, that feeling of like, am I good enough? Or can I actually make the changes I want to make? Can I find that wife? Can I build the physique I want? Can I build the business that I'm dreaming of? Like a lot of these deep-seated thoughts are laced in shame, and they're laced in an idea of like, I don't even know if I am that kind of guy. Is this even possible? Like I've been working on myself for however long, years at a time, and a lot of these guys feel like they're not making a lot of progress. And it's not, and something I've shared with my clients in a lot of the work I do. It's like it's not what you do, it's who you are, who you're being that's making the difference. Because if you believe that you're not going to achieve those things, well, then you're not going to achieve those things. So, like at the end of the day, it all really comes down to your identity. Who do you believe that you are? And that is where your out. That's where your behavior come from. Your behavior always follow your belief. So if you're making the same like patterns and mistakes over and over again, that has everything to do with what you believe in.
That's a great point. And that's something I'd like to talk a little bit more about because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
something I've specifically noted down because
Mm-hmm.
of course, you know, we have to a little bit of a different approaches to things. And you mentioned it with the internal beliefs, and that's something that 100% I agree with. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there is an internal motivation that leads to a certain action. But I also do believe that in some cases, we need to make the modification to the external behavior in order to change the internal motivation, essentially.
Sure.
And, you know, I think that is also keeping a lot of men stuck.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they believe, and this is where we get into, you know, modern therapy and modern self help. You know, the key is always in the past, the past, the past. And
Mm-hmm.
I always need to do some internal changes. But sometimes we just need to change the external behavior because then through that, we solidify a new belief in ourselves. Like, for example, if
Mm-hmm.
you're someone that struggles with a certain thing, a lot of the times, for example, that can be corn and jerking off, right? And that's a certain thing that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that action is driven by a certain internal motivation, a certain internal belief. It isn't just always like a negative belief, but I've heard
Mm-hmm.
cases, you know, men believe, okay, I will never find a woman in this society, so that's why I resort to it. Of course, it's also just purely pleasure seeking and instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, you know, in cases like this, I call it the outside in approach, right? So we got to change the external behavior in order to create a change on the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I really think those two things are connected. Like you can't really have
Absolutely.
one without the other. Like the way you change on the inside is how you change on the outside, but also how you change on the outside is how you change on the inside. So I think both of those are very connected. And what you described is something that I call stacking evidence.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. I know.
right,
Yeah.
like if you do something so many times, you basically build a case to why you believe something to be true. So if let's say for example, um I talked to a girl and she didn't like me, and then I did that very sparingly for the next couple of weeks, and I had nothing but rejection happen. Well, I'm going to build up evidence that okay, girls just don't like me, and I'm going to build that belief. Start thinking, well, I'm just an ugly person. I'm unattractive. Like I'm not charismatic, whatever story that I create. But the same can be true if you do the opposite. If you have that old belief pattern, we'll start approaching girls in a different way, or maybe you change up how you express yourself or how you feel in the moment, then you start getting some more positive responses. And then you're building evidence in the other direction. Like, oh, actually, I am pretty decent at talking to women. I actually do have some confidence. I actually do have something to offer. And it's the same thing. Like the more evidence that you build, I called it actually yesterday on a coaching call with my clients. I called it it's like a piggy bank. You're investing a coin and you're dropping it into the piggy bank of evidence till eventually you build so much evidence that becomes your identity. That just becomes part of who you are.
Absolutely. Of course, that instantly reminded on the famous Alex Hormozy quote. I think we all know it, who are a little bit more in the self-development space. It's that confidence doesn't come from affirmation, shouting affirmations into the mirror. It comes from stacking undeniable proof that you are who you say you are.
Hmm.
Right. And
Yep.
and this just, brings everything full circle. If you are struggling with a certain topic, whatever that is. It can be lack of confidence, it can be shame, that can be some sort of addiction like masturbation or whatever. Like Tino said, it's really always a combination of external and internal because
Hmm.
like one without the other really doesn't work. You can
Hmm.
try to achieve the internal transformation, but your actions are going to solidify the opposing beliefs. So
Hmm.
you really got to put both into alignment. And this is where real confidence is coming from. And this
Hmm.
is something that so many men struggle with because,
Yeah.
of course, we have high expectations of ourselves. And like, I'm specifically a guy, like, I struggled with this a lot. Extreme high expectations to the point of them becoming unrealistic and then beating myself down because I wasn't able to achieve it.
Hmm.
And this is where like slowing down and really focusing more on your purpose than just like something on the external, some external goal that like defines your worth or your value or something like that.
Hmm. 100%. There's a lot in there. I want to bounce off of because you said a lot of great things. But I want to start off with like relating it to the industry as a whole because you and I have seen a lot of what's out there in terms of like the coaching industry, the masculine spaces, being on YouTube and Instagram for as long as we have been. In your viewpoint, what do you see as like pretty much the main issue with like mainstream self-improvement advice or like masculinity advice that you think is actually holding men back more than it's helping them? Like what have you seen?
Oh, that's a lot to unpack here. I mean, there are a couple of things going wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, specifically, it always depends on the individual.
Mhm.
But the thing is, as human beings, we are more prone to negative emotions. Like that's the core issue of social media as a whole.
Mhm.
Everything that induces fear, anxiety, shame, guilt, negative emotions will always reach you more likely than things that make you feel good. Like I
Mhm.
see this now after getting back on social media extremely. Like if you scroll through it, it's so easy to get angry. It's so easy to get
Yes.
anxious. So that's the core issue. Now the other
Mhm.
issue is that the male self-improvement niche, the things that you often see like virality often comes from controversy and not really from value.
Mhm.
And it's often very dull and repetitive. Like we've been almost a decade in this niche, right?
Yeah.
And you still see the same quotes, and it's like it just lacks nuance, it lacks depth. It's
Mhm.
just do the work harder.
Mhm.
And that's the one thing, and then linking it back with the negative emotions and stuff like that, which is also something we've discussed before the call, which is of course specifically in the male improvement space. Now I'm not sure how it's today because I don't really follow it, but like back in the days a couple of years ago, you had all like these pseudo masculinity things like fresh and fit and stuff like that of course there's a lot of positive to say about them. I'm sure they have inspired a lot of men to get into self-improvement, But then also we're again at this point of, okay, what's the intention for being on self-improvement? Does it come from
Mhm.
confidence? Does it come from purpose? Does it come from wanting to serve society?
Mhm.
Or does it come because there has been a condition implied, okay, you have to do this or else dot dot dot, whatever that is, right? Which
Mhm.
leads to the topic of shame. You gotta
Mhm.
do this, otherwise you're not a real man. You gotta earn this amount of money, otherwise you're not a real man. You gotta have 5 women in your rotation, otherwise, you're a loser. And all
Mhm.
that type of stuff.
Mhm. That's a fantastic point, and I agree 100% on that. Like we've really the industry has devolved into like a pissing contest. Like who can do things better, stronger, faster, with more money, with more charisma, and it ends up becoming just well, we're men, so we're very competitive. It ends up becoming like who could do this thing faster or better, and that's where we derive a lot of our worth from. And that's kind of what I meant a few minutes ago when I was talking about the performance. A lot of people talk about the performative masculinity, thinking like, okay, well, if I make this amount of money, then I'm considered masculine. Or if I have this percent body fat, then I'm more masculine. Or if I have this amount of women that I'm talking to or dating whatever, then I'm more masculine. When it's like, well, if those things disappeared, are you no longer masculine? You're basing your worth off of things that can come and go, but where is your worth really? What is it rooted in? And a lot of the times, that stuff is rooted all in shame, like you said. It's laced with shame, with fear, with judgment. And guys, they improve not because they genuinely want to better themselves and because they want to be of service. They improve because they don't want to be made fun of. Like they're trying to avoid the pain of being judged. So they're like, all right, I don't want to seem like a loser, so I want to get in the gym and work on my biceps. Or I don't want to seem like I'm, getting judged by my friend, so I'm gonna go talk to 5 girls and get their phone number. And it's completely motivated from the shame because they're trying to run away from it. So my approach with that is the complete opposite because most people, what we do, and I call myself out because it's the same thing I've done, is we like to avoid those hard conversations. We like to avoid the shame, but you can't avoid shame by escaping shame. You avoid it by facing it head on. So you know what? I do feel a little inadequate. I do feel a little fearful or insignificant, whatever the shame conversation is. You have to literally sit there and just, man, this is actually how I'm feeling. So that way it doesn't have control over you when you actually look at it instead of going to the gym and doing 10 more sets because some guy online told you that's what you should do if you're feeling down and depressed. It's like you got to face what you're experiencing in order to experience something else.
Absolutely. That reminds me actually on an experience that I had recently. Just like you, I'm currently getting back into taking my faith a little bit more seriously. Like
Hmm.
as it always happens with modern distractions, and if you're an
Yeah,
ambitious man who pursues many things, work a lot of hours, I think I speak for a lot of people when I say we kind of put the faith on the back burner. Then we're
sure.
like, yeah, maybe I should go to church, but really got a little bit of work to do instead. And I'm sure, God will understand it and whatever.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
recently I was in church and I was like, damn, dude, like I feel small,
Mm,
and I'm sure like many people have experienced this, but you feel so small and like you're nothing really. And I think this is also a lot of help when you talk about shame,
mhm,
because specifically with shame, and I call it conditional performance. We do that because we're running away from it,
mhm,
but in reality it doesn't matter, right? We're all small, like compared to the biggest one of them all, to God. It's
mhm,
like when you have that humility, and this is really what faith helps you with, then you're able to make a big step towards really just becoming the man that you want to become. like free
Mhm.
of the shame, like you don't care about what people say about you because they're gonna talk shit regardless of what you do.
Mhm.
And personally, for me, it has been extremely helpful. Like, not just the
Mhm.
sense of humility that you get, because, you know, we often, the problem with shame is, right? We think of ourselves, or we try to make it seem like that we're the shit, we're the biggest one, we're the
Yep.
dog, let's call it
Yep.
that.
Yep.
And then, we put all our effort into proving that to everyone, when in real reality, we don't even really want to do that.
Mhm.
So this is where like humility helps a lot, but also just the sense of community that you get.
Mhm.
Like you don't feel like an outsider. You don't, especially with the community, you don't need to put on a performance. And
Mhm.
that helps a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think faith is a huge part of masculinity that isn't it's starting to get talked about now. I'm noticing that like there's a lot more
Yeah.
Christian coaches or just like Christian faith-based coaches that support men. You're starting to see more of it now. But I love that what you said about humility. I actually have this written down right here. One of my favorite Bible quotes because that's something I've been dealing with is pride. It's a huge one for me. And I wrote down the Bible quote from James 4 6. It says, God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. And man, that like, it's a reminder for myself to really check the ego sometimes and learn that like I don't have it all figured out. I don't know everything. There's a lot of things I'm still unclear about. There's a lot of things that I haven't experienced yet. And I honestly think that helps you serve that much more. Speaking from like a entrepreneurial perspective or like a coach perspective, if you think like you're the guy, and specifically speaking to the guys in the industry, if you think you're the coach that has all the answers, that has it all figured out, that puts a lot of pressure on you because you think, okay, this is just me. Like I got nothing, I got no support. You don't have the community aspect, or maybe you do, but that's if you have an ego-based community, then you're only building the community so you can build yourself up. Yeah, look at me, like give me the praise, make me the alpha or whatever, and you're getting all of that dopamine, that validation, and it really becomes a like a community based on self masturbation, in a sense like mental masturbation. It's not like a genuine community that helps the people. It's not for the people, it's for you. So, um, yeah, I just think that putting things in perspective really helps and learning that um, where there's a lot of things I could jump off with that, but learning where you're placing your priorities I think is huge because that was the thing for me. Like I always believed in a higher power, I always believed in God, but I never really knew what that meant to follow God until I started really understanding to put that as a priority. Like I was like, yeah, I'll pray and whatever. I never really read the Bible, like never really um surrounded myself with community, like fellowship. Didn't really make it a priority, but ever since I did, um just grants you a level of peace, at least for myself, like a sense of peace and a sense of like more honestly more purpose. Like, I'm being used for something really, really powerful here, and it's not just me that's doing it.
Got just a moment, got a, like, what is it called? Lash in my in my
Yeah.
eye.
I was gonna say,
Um
making you emotional, man. It's getting you all worked up.
yeah, I mean, also to circle back with, the conditional performance and with the shame, and
Hmm.
just, feeling, I would say, feeling like you're not good enough hits the nail on the
Yeah,
head here.
totally.
It's, you put so much pressure on you, like trying
Hmm.
to look perfect, trying to
Yep.
look like you have it all figured out,
Hmm.
also trying to fit in.
Yep.
Like those are all things that are gonna make you feel absolutely miserable.
Hmm.
And this is the hard part. In the long run, those things make you feel absolutely miserable. But in the short term, it's incredibly hard to not do it, right?
Yeah.
For example, if you're somebody that is, a people pleaser or somebody that just has, difficulty showing up as his real self and maybe says things he doesn't really mean or doesn't say things in order to avoid conflicts or something like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, it feels better in the moment because like you don't have to face that extreme fear and anxiety, but the consequences is that you first of all will never have genuine connections. You will always feel isolated and disconnected,
Hmm.
and you will never really develop confidence in yourself.
Hmm. Yeah. It's debilitating. It really is. And this is what we're describing here is what I call the process of like putting on the mask. Because everything you just mentioned, it's all a mask. It's the performance. That's where the performance comes from. It's like, all right, I'm the perfectionist who I got to do everything this way. Or one of my masks that I wore for a very long time was like the smooth, sophisticated. I mean, that's where I came up with the brand name, sophisticated man. Like that was a mask for a long time. I wore ties and I had the tie clip with button down shirts and I dressed up really, really nice and clean cut, not because that's who I was and I wanted to express myself that way, but I did it was because like I need to dress this way so people take me seriously, or I need to dress this way so people listen to what I have to say. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was doing that because it was fueled by shame. I'm thinking, well, nobody's going to listen to me if I'm just dressed normally like a t-shirt. Like I was a 23-year-old kid at the time, very inexperienced, very naive, and I thought, well, if I wear ties, like I'll look more professional. So that was the mask that I had to wear. That was my performance. I had to show up and, you know, basically all my videos were like me reading a book that I read and just regurgitating exactly what I read in the book. It wasn't my own ideas, it wasn't my own thoughts. It was just, well, this sounds good, let me talk about that. Or that sounds good, let me talk about that. And in the beginning it worked because like it got me motivated, it got me moving, but in the long run, like you said, I got exhausted. I got pretty burnt out because I was like, after a while, you get sick of trying to play the character, and you eventually just want to be yourself. As basic and cliched as that sound, like being authentic, being your true self, even when it might not look a certain way, is going to be the most sustainable thing for you long term. And in my opinion, it's one of the most masculine things you can do because authenticity, it's not a restriction on expression. So you just simply don't care what people think about you either way.
Absolutely. And you know what just came into my mind, which is also important? I always, when I think about these topics and speak about them, something that's always in my mind is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And
Hmm.
I'm not sure, probably not everybody is aware of that, but that's basically a pyramid, like the food pyramid, which tells where your priorities are depending in which phase of life you are. For example, the basic need for all of us is safety,
Hmm.
or like things like food, shelter, water.
Yeah.
And as you move up, it becomes more about self realization.
Hmm.
And that is, of course, also something that is holding a lot of people back, especially, if you tend to be a younger man in his early 20s, you're probably not in a stage where you think you're able to do that because you're busy, trying to hustle, trying to earn money, which is, not to speak things easily, but it's extremely difficult in our modern society if you happen to be a young man in the middle class and are trying to make it. Like
Hmm.
your mind is always on the money. And
Yes.
I think only after you've established a certain amount of freedom and probably a certain amount of financial freedom or financial stability, you
Hmm.
can really step into that self realization.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Like you need your needs met. You got to be able to eat food, drink clean water, have a place to stay. Like once you get those met, and it's not like, and I think this is kind of gets blown up in the culture that we live in today. People think that you need to live in the biggest mansion and you need to have a personal chef and you need to have all of these exquisite amenities, and it's just not true. You can live a pretty modest, decent life, or at least a temporary living where you're not, you know, staying at five-star restaurants and five-star hotels, and you have all the bells and whistles. You can live a pretty decent life, um, with a temporary, moderate sized income and just get your basic needs met. And from there, you can grow because that's a great point that you started with. Like when people don't feel safe, they're going to be in survival mode. That's just the basic human nature. When we don't feel safe, we're just trying to survive. And if we're trying to survive, we're not going to be expressive. We're not going to care about building a business. We're not going to care about uh, finding a wife. We're just trying to find a place to live, or we're just trying to find the next meal. So that's a great point. And to that point as well, sometimes what happens is even when you have that baseline level of safety, you still don't feel safe internally. Like you might have like a home, you might have a meal, you might have a routine and all that stuff set up, but then you feel unsafe inside. It's like you're constantly in fight or flight. And that's what really gets guys stuck. Is like they constantly feel unsafe because they don't trust themselves. They think that things are out of their control, or they think that like the ambition that they have is too big for them. Like where they want to go is like, that's going to take forever. There's no way, it's out of my reach. And they constantly feel this level of fear, and they don't feel safe in their own bodies. They don't feel safe in their own identity. And it's kind of like the antithesis of authenticity and expression, because you can't be fully authentic and also be fully in fear at the same time. Like one of those things kind of takes over. So it's like where are you operating from? Are you operating from safety or are you operating from fear? And a lot of that I think ties to the identity.
Absolutely. And it begins in the mind,
It
right?
does. Yeah, it
I
does.
always say abundance begins in the mind because what you said, like I
Hmm.
was about to say that,
Yeah.
but it really like it starts in the mind. Like you said, you can earn a decent income, you can have all your needs met,
Hmm.
but when you like put so much pressure onto yourself, oh, I gotta reach that level of income, I gotta have this, I'm only successful or considered successful if I have this and this and this and that.
Hmm.
You always mentally put yourself down like into
Yeah.
the survival category of the Maslow hierarchy of needs.
Hmm.
And that's all in the mind. I can tell you out of experience. Like, I am a middle class guy. You are a middle class guy. I live in a small apartment in Vienna. I drive a Ford. And I'm still doing all right. I
Hmm.
still have enough. Like, okay, I work a job that pays very well. But back in the days, that wasn't enough for me, right? Because I was constantly unhappy with the amount of income that I generated.
Hmm.
And the truth is, it doesn't matter how much that is going to be. If you continue to have that mindset, nothing will ever be enough.
Hmm.
Because like when is enough? Is it 5K? Is it 10K? Is it 20K? Is it a
Yep.
million per month?
Hmm.
If you're acting out of scarcity and out of lack, it's
Hmm.
never gonna be enough.
Hmm. That's an amazing point. There must be something about the middle class folk driving Fords. 'Cause I got a Ford myself, so I must be something to that. But dude, that's a fantastic point. Like, and I'm in a similar position myself. Like right now, again, I'm not where I want to be financially 100%, but I have enough to where I'm stable. Like, I can pay my bills, I can live comfortably. I travel a good bit. I do that quite a bit for my lifestyle and clients, and you know, I still have a side hustle right now. Obviously, I'm working in my business. I have a few clients, but I also have a thing on the side to just make some extra income. So like the funny thing is when I was starting this whole journey and I was like really, really hurting for cash, I had pretty much no job or I had a very low income paying job. I always was like, all right, when I get to this point and I'm making money online and I'm making five, $10,000 per month, then I'll be excited, then I'll be happy, then I'll be fulfilled. And then I finally got to that point and I'm like looking at the next thing. Well, now I got to make 15,000 a month. I got to make 20K a month. I got to make 100K a month. It's like you'll never ever fill that void if you're constantly chasing the next thing, which again comes back to that identity conversation. Like what is motivating you? Is it because you feel like you're not worthy and the money you're basing your worthiness off of the money, the income? Because if that's the case, it's always going to fluctuate. It's always going to go up and down. And like I have a belief that like money does not determine your worth. It simply reflects the worth that you already feel about yourself. Like if I feel unworthy, well, I'm only going to say my limit is probably like a couple $1,000s a month, 2K, 3K a month. But if I'm an abundant person and I just believe that I'm an abundant person, I have opportunities, I have, potential to really make this thing happen, and I really believe in myself, I have a solid system of identity and belief. Well, I can create, 10K, 20K, 30K months just because that's just who I am. Like I understand that that's who the person I choose to be. So all of it comes down to what you believe in and who you believe you are. I've said like whatever you believe about yourself is correct, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing.
Absolutely. And there's something I'd like to add. I think a lot of the difficulty comes from not being sure, or not being able to differentiate between contentment and complacency.
Yes.
Because it's a topic that always arises. Like you said, I'm or like you said that you are in a decent place, but there's still
Hmm.
something more. And of course, right, that will always be the case.
Sure.
It's the same for me. Like, okay, when you have the 10K month, well, you're not going to stop there.
Hmm.
You're going to continue, right? You still have the ambition and the drive and want to achieve bigger goals.
Yep.
But it's an art in and of itself, to be content and pursue a higher goal at the same time. And
Hmm.
that's what a lot of guys really struggle with, because they think that, okay, if I am content with my life, I become complacent. It's like, okay, everything's fine,
Hmm.
I'm just going to chill, and that's
Hmm.
it. Which is absolutely not the case, right? Again,
Hmm.
it's for men like us, we're always going to strive for something. As soon, like, especially for us, like, having that thing that isn't even that interesting.
Yeah.
It's about the actual pursuit. It's like, oh, the journey is the way. Wow, such a cool
Hmm.
quote. But like, that's kind of it, right?
It is.
And it takes a while until you understand that. And it all circles back to, okay, what is your motivation why you pursue it, right? Are
Hmm.
you acting out of purpose because you want to serve people? Or are you being selfish and try to fill a void and try to run away from something?
Hmm. Yeah. It's a constant balance of like being grateful for what you have, but also pursuing more in the process. Not because that you're, and I know people throw labels on it like, oh, you're being greedy or you're being selfish or you're doing this for whatever reasons. And like, I never really, I never really believed in that because I think being greedy is like, it's kind of like being a gluttonous person. Like you're taking more money than you even need. You're like you met your basic needs, you have all the amenities, you have all the wants and desires filled, and you're still like I still don't have enough. I need more. I need more. I need more. And that's when greed can be your downfall. It's only when you put money on a higher value than your personal peace. That's when it can get into trouble. But as we know, like in the modern world we live in, like you need money. Like you need money to survive. You need money to do things that you want. You need money to be of service too. Like if we need money to do the things that we want to do in terms of our business and running a successful practice. So we understand that money's important, but you have to also understand that like to truly excel, not only financially, but just in the world today, it does come from a dissociation from your worth and the amount of money that you have. And I know that that's hard to do as a man because we're always taught you got to make more money. The more successful you are, the more attractive you'll be to women, the more manly you'll seem to other guys, the more respect you'll get from other men. And like it's deep seated in, I guess you could say, culture. It's like a masculine culture kind of thing. Like we look at guys that make more money and we kind of have a different opinion about them. But the truth is, like, you can't determine your being just based off of money. Because when you do that, it's you'll always be chasing that next high, like you said. It'll always be just a hit of emotions instead of coming from a place where it's an expression of who you are.
Absolutely. And there's something I'd like to add to that because you said, it's about society. And
Hmm.
obviously, as men who are more into traditional masculinity, we want to be a provider, right?
Sure.
So we put a certain expectation on our financial success, like we have a certain level that we need to reach,
Hmm.
which of course also becomes increasingly difficult in today's society because prices are skyrocketing and we're not like in the best economic situation, but that's a completely different topic that has nothing to do
You're right.
on our YouTubes. I'm a
Mhm.
lot into finances and the economy. That's why I
Yeah.
know a lot about that stuff.
Yeah.
But still, like we have certain expectations. We want to live a certain
Hmm.
life, and there is a level that we have to reach, right? This is like, okay, we have to reach this. This is part of our goal.
Hmm. Yeah.
But the way to it doesn't need to be filled with unnecessary suffering.
Yeah.
Like I know it for myself. I used to be, super optimistic. I said I think it was 19. I said, yeah, with 26, I'm gonna be financially free, and I'm gonna do everything that I want to do. Well, now
Yeah.
I'm 27.
Hmm.
Didn't work out exactly as I planned it,
Hmm.
but also on this way, and even like maybe 2 3 years ago, I was putting an extreme amount of pressure on myself because I was like, okay, dude, that is not enough. But then it's like, okay, again, out of which state am I acting from?
Hmm.
Because that is a fear of scarcity, of anxiety,
Yep.
and not of purpose and abundance. And when I was able to make that shift, it's like I'm now doing the exact same things,
Hmm.
but with a lot more peace. It's like
Yep.
you just do, like you don't have worries, you don't have fears, you're not constantly thinking about the future, you're not constantly planning and, oh, I need to make more money, I need this and that.
Hmm.
You just exist, you
Hmm.
just do,
Hmm.
and obviously this takes, some time until you reach that level, especially financially.
Yeah.
Like you gotta have some money, like especially saved, to have that freedom and that peace.
Hmm.
Because when okay, if something happens, some unexpected expenses, you can't afford it. Well, obviously there's gonna be panic, and you're
Hmm.
gonna be in that state of anxiety and stress.
Hmm.
But once you're out of that state, there's really no need to, and that's like you're being your own perpetrator in that sense. You're doing that to yourself,
Yeah.
and you can walk the same path just with more peace if you take away the anxiety, the stress, the fear, the shame, and
Hmm.
replace it with a true sense of purpose, and you just focus on helping people, serving people, and obviously, we're in the self-help niche. Not everybody is in the self-help niche. Not everybody's going to be a coach, but you're being of service to society if you're being a mechanic.
Hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be something super fancy, but if you just focus on doing your best and excelling at it, everything else will fall into place.
Hmm. That's well said. I always think like value and service come first, and the money follows that. Like the more valuable that you become, the more in demand a skill set that you possess, you'll always be compensated for it, regardless of what industry you're in, regardless of how long you've been doing something. If you have a thing that people need, or you can solve a specific problem, that's really the basis of entrepreneurship. If you could do that, you'll be compensated. Don't matter what economic climate that we're in, whether we're in a depression or a recession or whatever, like you'll be able to make money because you're solving people's problems. You're being of service. And service is, I mean, the service industry is never going to go out of business, like ever. There's always going to be people that need someone else. And there was something that, as you were talking, came to my mind about abundance, because we've been talking about abundance a good bit. I used to think abundance meant that like you have a lot of money or you have a lot of resources or a lot of women or a lot of clothes or house, whatever. Now I'm starting to really look at abundance differently. Like abundance to me now, I believe it means being some, like you could have none of those things, and still be an extremely abundant man. Like, let's say I'm not talking, well, I'll use myself for example. I'm not really dating right now. I went on a few dates a few months ago, but um, don't really have like people that I'm texting or anything like that. I believe my abundance is like I could walk outside today and then create options for myself out of thin air. That is truly abundant. Like, if I'm basing my abundance, and this comes back to the worthy conversation, if I'm basing my level of abundance based on what I have, then I'm not actually abundant. I'm just living off of the illusion of abundance. It's not real abundance. Real abundance is like even when you have nothing, you can go create it out of thin air because you believe that you'll make it happen. Like being if you're broke, you know how to make money just because of a skill set that you have or a value that you have. Or if you have no options with women, doesn't matter because you're an abundant man. You know how to go outside. You create options out of thin air. That's real abundance. Like abundance is not what you have, but what you can do with what you have.
100% agree with that. There's nothing more that I can add to the topic of abundance. It starts
Yeah.
from the inside,
Yeah.
and I would say with that, I think it's a good time to wrap it up now. We want to keep
Sure.
it like 30 minutes, a little bit longer, maybe than that, but we want to keep it short and compact. And I think it has been a great conversation. So it's a good time now to wrap it up. So you did the opening, so I'll let you close it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a great conversation, man. I'm looking forward to doing more of these in the future. So as the viewer, we're going to be doing a few of these. I don't know. I think we agreed to like maybe two a month or one a month. We'll figure out the cadence, but we plan to make this a regular thing. So hopefully you got some value from this. If you got some insights, let us know what stuck out to you down below. Like there's a lot of topics that we covered just in this conversation with money, abundance, the men's space, shame. We talked about quite a bit. So if anything stuck out to you, let us know. And let us know if you want to talk about something specifically. If you have a specific struggle or pain point or something that you've been struggling with that you really want some clarity on, let us know. And we can dedicate an episode or two to just answering your guys' questions. So if you liked it, give us a thumbs up, give us a follow. We both have social medias. Obviously, I'll post some of Manuel's links down below. You know where to find my stuff. But yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing these conversations and getting back to the swing of things on YouTube. I'm a little rusty, so this is just kind of my warming back up into the process of making long form stuff again. But definitely gonna make this a regular thing and a nice little comeback tour. Do you wanna close out anything, or are you good?
Oh no, that's I thought that's what I thought that's what it is.
Oh, you're
I
good.
said I let you close.
Word, word. Sweet. Well, that's it for me. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Appreciate Manuel for coming out and having the conversation, and we'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.
Bye bye.